Councillor Greening's joining late.
Thank you.
We're now live streaming on YouTube.
It's just doing it now. Hold on.
Greening's joining late.
Okay, everything is now live on YouTube. So should I admit the one member of the public?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so it's now 1900 hours, so I'll now commence the meeting. So good evening and welcome to Wincanton Town Council's full council meeting on the 22nd of March at 7 p.m. Today we will go through a set agenda that's been shared and published within our website, and we will now go into the first part of, prior to starting our agenda, I will enter into public participation. But before I do so, can I first check with councillors, have you received the papers today? Can you just raise a hand if you have or nod? Lovely, thank you. That's brilliant. So all councillors have received papers. And I'm just about to confirm who's on the meeting from council. Sorry. So I have Councillor Vagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Tudgate, and myself, Shelbourne Barrow, and we have the clerk today, our locum clerk. So if I now move into, prior to starting the formal agenda, I'd like to just read something, please, that's part of the public participation before we then move to request if anyone wishes to speak. Before the meeting, the chair may allow a public session to enable people to ask questions of council and make comments in accordance with Standing Orders 3E and 3H. Questions are directed to council and should be restricted to the matters on the agenda. Members of the public are not to verbally abuse or harass a member of council. Questions not answered in this meeting will be answered in writing to the person asking the question, or may appear as an agenda item for the next meeting. Members of the public are asked to restrict their comments and or questions to 3 minutes. So prior to having completed that statement, my apologies, at 19:02, I now would like to invite members of the public who wish to speak. Is there a member of the public who wishes to speak?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And you may start.
Thank you very much. Good evening, councillors. The matters that you discuss are difficult for the general public to follow because you don't circulate any papers that you clearly have all had sight of before your meetings. I refer specifically to your revised standing orders, which you discussed and approved at your meeting on the 22nd of February, which are still not on your website. Furthermore, at this meeting, you are to discuss the revised terms of reference for the Planning Committee, as well as a persistent and vexatious complainers and correspondence policy. You don't engage with the public during your meetings and direct the public to post questions in writing. I have asked for the papers that relate to tonight's agenda items 6B and 6C and have not received them yet. I've also asked for a copy of your revised standing orders. I've not received those either. It is hard not to conclude that you try your hardest to undertake your decision-making and discussion in secret, given the lack of public accessibility. This is unacceptable and does not fulfill the requirements of the Nolan Principles, which you very publicly signed up to in 2020. In a similar vein, your schedule of future meetings is also secretive. Your full council meetings are held towards the end of the month, apart from in December, and yet in May, you intend to hold your full council meeting on the 2nd of the month, a mere 8 days after the previous such meeting, and a full 8 weeks before the next one. The 2nd of May is 2 days before a by-election for 6 new councillors. At your meeting on the 2nd, you intend to elect a mayor for the forthcoming 12 months, but your timing will deny those new councillors from involvement in that election. To any casual observer, it is hard not to conclude that this is a deliberate timetable and one that is also not in line with the Nolan Principles. I ask you to consider and reconsider these matters. I am not alone in this community, your electorate, who think that this council is being run in a secretive and unrepresentative manner. Please remember who elected you and what they expect you to do and how they expect you to behave. Thank you.
So I first would like to draw your attention to the responses that you have received from our clerk. In response to other matters, unless it's on the agenda tonight, we will not be discussing that any further. And in addition to the last two items, I believe, they've been agreed and will be uploaded in terms of our standing orders onto our website when a member of staff is available to do so. And in addition, the meetings, the dates of the year were agreed in December and shared through council and ratified. And therefore they are an agreed schedule for the year, which then was populated to agree all of our other meetings, including those that are committees and working groups. At this time, I have nothing further to add. Clerk, would you like to add anything? If not, I will move on to the formal agenda.
Madam Chairman,
Thank you.
There is
You
no
have-
further dialogue. Thank you, Mr. Ellard. We have responded. I would ask that, as I've read to you, I have responded and we have responded from council. And I would
you
ask
haven't.
our clerk to respond again to any items that I may have missed in my response. So, Locum Clerk, do you wish to add anything, or will you be following this up following our meeting?
I don't wish to add anything now, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, further
Unless there's any
obfuscation.
other members of public who wish to speak, the public participation has closed. Councillor Ralph, do you wish to add anything in relation to the items? Clerk, as I close the session, can Councillor Ralph now speak?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, Councillor Ralph, you're welcome to speak.
Chair, I'd just like to add that I have seen the replies Mr. Ellard has received. So it frustrates me that he says that he hasn't received replies from the clerk on these.
I have received a reply. It just doesn't answer the questions.
But Councillor, Mr. Ellard, you've said that repeatedly, and I've know other members of the community have said this, but I see countless replies to your questions. Unfortunately, just because people don't like the answers to the questions doesn't mean they haven't been replied to. If you want to come back and say we don't like the answers, that's fine. But people have received replies.
I don't
please,
like the fact
we
that
are
you
not
haven't
going to-
sent me the papers.
Right, well, I'm going to close
That
this
is not
session now.
replying.
I would like to close this session now and ask Mr. Ellard that you no longer speak within meeting, because members of the public participation section has now closed. And as I stated, any other comments that I've missed during my reply to you, our clerk will respond in due course in an open and transparent way. And I now move into the full agenda, if I may. So apologies. Do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting, clerk?
No.
As I said previously, Councillor Greening said he will be attending, but slightly later. So if I now move on to point 2 on the agenda, which is the declarations of interest. Are there any councillors in this meeting who wish to declare an interest in any item on the agenda tonight? Could you, if you do so, could you raise your hand? Thank you. So no members of council are raising their hand to declare an interest. I now move into point 3 on the agenda, which is minutes of the previous meeting. So these have been published and circulated, and this is to receive and review the minutes of the Zoom meeting on the 22nd of February in accordance with Standing Orders 12C. So can I first ask that you look at those minutes of that meeting on the 22nd, and we'll go through and just I'll ask for any amendments, please. So page 1, any amendment, council? No? Page 2, any amendments? Page 3? And page 4. And finally, I think it's finally, she says, page 5. So no councillors are, yes, Councillor Tapier.
Just to note, Chair, that the matter regarding the electricity bill for the Burnham Garage was settled satisfactory. It's just an odd way in which the bill is sent. It is for the workman's hut, but for some unknown reason, it's down as Laburnum Cottages. So it's a misprint on the minutes, and the cottages are adjacent to the workman's hut. So that matter was resolved satisfactorily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other comments in relation to the agenda? Sorry, the minutes, I beg your pardon, of the 22nd. If there are no further comments, we do actually have the action note somewhere, actually. Sorry, I'm just going to look for them on my screen. Locum Clark, do we need to cover the actions now, or shall we do them following signing off the minutes? They're on the agenda, aren't they, for later?
Yeah, they're at point 4 on the agenda anyway.
Thank you. Apologies. So if no one's making any further comments, can I ask for a proposer for the 22nd of February, please? And that's Councillor Power, and a seconder for the minutes, please, of the 22nd, Councillor Smith. And can I have a vote from council if you're for the minutes? So I have Councillor Fagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Ludgate and Shelbourne Barry. So that's unanimous, and there are no councillors against. Thank you. The second two items on the agenda, which are 3B and 3C. So let's go with 3B. Note the draft minutes of the Governance and General Purposes Working Group meeting held on the 1st of February 2021. So councillors, have you reviewed these, and do you have any comments or questions you wish to make? Otherwise, we're just noting those now. Thank you. And if we move to 3C, to note the draft minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 8th of March. Now, I would like to just say that there is a separate item on the agenda to look at planning in its own right. So this is to note the minutes of the meeting, Locum Clark, isn't it? So is there anything we need to do prior to looking through? Is there any potential issues we need to allude to now that with the agenda item further on the agenda tonight?
No, the planning applications that are on the agenda later tonight were referred to the full council at that planning committee meeting on the 8th of March. So there's nothing further to do except to note the minutes.
Thank you. So we're noting the minutes 3C, which is the planning committee minutes on the 8th of March. Moving on to now review the action points from the previous meeting. Locum Clark, would you take us through those, please? The final ones for February, I think, are the ones that are outstanding.
I'm just getting up on my screen so I can look at it. So I've got somebody looking into information on LED savings, so I'll be able to bring that to a future meeting. And the Laburnum Road electricity bill, Councillor Tuggett has just said that one's been sorted out. So all the other action points have been completed.
Thank you. How do you wish us to acknowledge it? Just to note it, or do you need us to do anything more formal than that?
Just a note, there's nothing for you to agree at this stage, unless anyone's got anything they want to ask.
Any comments, councillors? No, thank you. I'm going to move on, close that item and move on. So reports from county and district councillors. Is there a member of county or district here? Because I can't see anyone. I don't know if anyone. Yes, Locum Clark.
There's none here, but County Councillor Groscott did forward a report which I sent out to you all with the other documents I sent out.
So having received that report, are there any comments or questions councillors wish to make for us to respond back? No? Okay, thank you. Are we assured that the invites are getting through to our district councillors? It's odd that we've had, I think, 2 meetings now with no representation from district.
Well, I don't know that they haven't been getting through. I haven't been having any error messages back from their email addresses or anything, but I do wonder if our emails are getting to the district council, because there's just one thing in particular I can think of that I would have expected a response to by now and haven't had it. So I don't know if there's any way we can follow that up. Okay.
I think that we do actually often see our district colleagues in the town. So if any of council does see a colleague in the town, can I ask that you just approach them, just informally ask, are they receiving papers, rather than formally talking to them? It may be useful at this time. Thank you. Moving on then, closing 5, moving to 6, council's matters. So we'll go through these one point at a time, and I would ask council, as you reviewed the papers, in particular with planning, if you have any further comments you wish to make, to do so at that time. So council matters 6A, to agree one further councillor to sit on the Open Spaces Committee. So we've brought this item before, and we have 4 councillors who've nominated themselves and been elected to stand and represent council on the Open Spaces Committee. We have 1 vacancy. I actually can't remember, and that's probably shameful, that I can't remember who actually said was on the Open Spaces Committee. I do know Councillor Tudgay is. I have a vague memory that Councillor Vagg is on that committee. I'm doing well. Councillor Smith, you're on that committee, and Councillor Power. Thank you. And Councillor
No, Councillor Waters.
And Councillor Waters.
Not Councillor Power.
Oh, did you put your hand up saying, sorry, Councillor Power, what did you put your hand up for?
I just got the list up. I was going to say who was on the committee, and then you thought I was on Open Spaces.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm sorry about that. I apologise. But are you volunteering, Councillor Power?
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Might as well.
Thank you, Councillor Power. So can I have a proposer to support Councillor Power's nomination to Open Spaces? Councillor Ralph, a seconder? Councillor Vagg, and can I have a vote for, if you support Councillor Power being a member of Open Spaces? So I have Councillor Vagg, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Tudgay and Shelbourne Barrow. And Councillor Power, do you wish to abstain? Is that
yeah,
right?
I'll abstain.
So Councillor Power is abstaining? Yes.
Sorry, who was the proposer and seconder for that? I didn't quite see.
Councillor Ralph proposed and Councillor Vagg seconded.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Open Spaces, Councillor Power, and to joining a really great team looking at our open spaces within the town.
You're in the cool kids club now.
Councillor Matters, point 6B, to consider approving revised terms of reference for the planning committee. Can I invite the locum clerk to speak to the changes, please?
Shall I share the screen?
Yes, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Can you go down there? Right. So I've done the, the track changes so that you can see. So I like to write the words for the numbers, so that's all that changes there. So the chair and the vice chair of the full council are ex officio members of all committees and can take part in committee meetings in the same way as other committee members, including the right to vote. So I've added that in. Point 7 was point 6 before, so it's just the same. I've added in when the committee expects to meet. And I've just added in planning committee meetings will be open to the press and public, because that part wasn't in there before. I thought the word transacted sounded better than done, so I've done that. I put the town clerk or the deputy town clerk will communicate, because there's no reason why that administrative task couldn't be carried out by the deputy. The minutes of the planning committee once agreed and distributed to all council members and approved at the next planning committee meeting. If you have a committee, the committee itself must approve the committee's minutes. They don't get approved by the full council, but they just get noted at full council instead. I've just reworded that. It doesn't, the substance of it is no different. I've taken this out, that all matters discussed at the planning committee shall remain confidential until such time they appear in the minutes. Well, that I don't really understand why that would be in there.
No.
The planning applicant, Councillor
Tuggy. Sorry, Councillor Tuggy, you're on mute, I'm afraid.
Can we go back to item 5, please? After following on from standing in at the last meeting, I am really concerned that 5 councillors is not enough. To make decisions on planning is quite a serious issue. We have to make allowances for absences because absences will occur for various reasons. So I would like to see the number of councillors that sit on this committee increased.
Is there any way we could just open it up to council with a minimum of 5?
Well, that defeats the object, surely, Chair, of setting up a planning committee, doesn't it?
So do
What about
we want
8?
Well, it has to be an odd number.
Okay.
So I would suggest either 7 or 9.
Views from council on that? I can't see you all because when we're sharing the screen, I lose some of the people on the screen. All right, that's fine. So, okay, thank you. So views from council on increasing the number of councillors on the planning committee. Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Power. You're on mute, I'm afraid, Councillor Thomas. We're having a little bit of a muting moment tonight, are we not?
7 sounds fine. We don't have enough for 9, but just about. So it'll have to be 7 anyway for quite some time anyway. But I can see Ray's point. If you know, if 2 people were off, for instance, it doesn't give much of a representation as far as committees go. And as Ray said, it's a kind of a, although we don't actually decide on what actually happens, I think it's important that we give it the importance that it deserves. So, yes, no, I tend to agree with you, Ray.
Councillor Power.
No, Ian said everything I needed to say, I think.
Okay, thank you. Clark.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. It makes perfect sense. I think 9 is probably a bit too many because that's more than half of the council when you've got a full complement. So 7 seems sensible. As you say, 5 is probably not enough. So I can change that to 7.
Is that 7 plus myself and a deputy? You know, the chair and deputy. Sorry, not myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So in effect, if the chair and deputy chair or vice chair were there and 7 others, we would have 9. Okay, so if that's the case, are we then proposing that we change that particular number tonight to 7, and then we vote on that? Is everyone happy with that as an agreement? And then we'll have to elect additional councillors at a subsequent meeting because we can't do that tonight.
Okay. Well, if you're saying 7 plus the 2, that's 9. That is everyone. So we don't even need to elect anyone. We can just do it, right?
Well, no, you have to elect people to each committee, name people.
But in this case, there's not a choice to be made, is there?
Well, there's not. There will be. May on.
Will be.
It's just good practice to make sure you've done it properly, I think. Otherwise, you could be open to accusations of people not being on the committee having voted for planning matters.
However, what we could say as well, although I'm 100% behind you in terms of what you said, Clark, is that any member of council, whether we agreed 7 or 9 out of the 15, can attend that meeting. So just because we're nominating individuals doesn't mean any subsequent councillors don't have a voice on that meeting, or indeed in full council, and with relation to this matter or other matters. So can we then agree we're changing that to 7, not 5, as in the in red on the draft terms of reference? Are there any other comments councillors wish to make? So we're retracting that comment at the bottom, which makes no sense because it actually doesn't go with the actual function and the way of working of that new council planning committee. Sorry, committee. God, name today. So if we are saying that we're happy and the only change we're making is number, can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Tudgay is proposing that we change the terms of reference and include 7. Councillor Power, are you seconding that?
Yes, second.
And those who are for changing the terms of reference to the planning committee in accordance with what's been presented to us and the amendment we verbally agreed, which is 7. So I have 4, Councillor Vagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Tudgay and Shelbourne-Barrow. So that, I believe, is unanimous. Are you happy with that, Locum Clark? Thank you. And we will bring the, when we go to items for the agenda, next agenda, we will put that on the agenda for the end of April. So moving to 6C, to consider approving a persistent, vexatious complainers and correspondence policy. So councillors, you would have received this. We've actually discussed this previously. It came to council. We asked for some amendments to be made that align to a previous policy we currently have, which is broader than this this policy today, which the amendments have now gone into that policy. Did you track changes, Locum Clark? Or I'm sorry, Locum Clark, you're muted. So if you're
That's all right. I thought everyone else had a go at being muted. I thought
I know it's fun tonight with the muting button.
All that I had been asked to do was to insert parts of the other policy into this particular one that you're talking about now, the complaints policy, into this one, just to make them correspond. So it's very, very small change.
Thank you. So having said that, our councillors, having read that and heard the comment from the clerk, does anyone wish to make any comment or ask any questions in relation to this particular policy? No? So therefore, can I ask for a proposer for this policy, persistent and vexatious complainers and correspondence policy? I have a proposal which is Councillor Ralph, a seconder, Councillor Thomas, and those 4 supporting the approval of this policy, having got a proposer and seconder. I have Councillor Vagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Tudgay and Shelbourne-Barrow. So a full complement in attendance tonight. So thank you for that. Can I ask once you're able to, can it be uploaded onto our website, and therefore anyone who wishes to read it can do so? 6D, consider request from Kale Park Kitchen for permission to install sail shades to provide shelter to outside seating area. So I'm going to first ask the Locum Clerk to talk to this, and then we can discuss it if there's any further questions we wish to pose.
So somebody from Kale Park Kitchen called me at the office last week or towards the end of the week before to ask permission for installing these sail shades. So that was my learning curve for the day, because I didn't know what sail shade was. They are these, you probably do, but I'll describe them anyway. They're these shades that attach to the side of the building and cover the outside area, so that when the lockdown restrictions ease slightly and such establishments as Kale Park Kitchen can operate outside only, there will be some undercover area for customers to sit. you will have seen the diagram that came today. I did ask what colour they were thinking of doing it, just in case it was something crazy. And they're talking about a light grey, which I thought was I don't know, maybe that was what they said anyway. So they're obviously going to pay for this. So it's whether or not you think it's a good idea.
Any questions from council? Councillor Power.
I think we should just support it, to be fair, because it's going to help them as a local business. I don't think there's anything we can say. We can't really say no about it, because I think we should need to support them.
Any other comments from council?
I use Kelcombe Park Kitchen quite a lot, and I think it's a really good idea because there were limited umbrellas for getting out of the sun. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, Councillor Dudgate?
I looked at the diagram when it came this afternoon. I'm slightly confused. Is it attached to the building, or is it a standalone piece of equipment?
No, it's not standalone. It's actually attached to the building.
Right, thank you.
Councillor
I just
Ralph,
wonder.
sorry.
Chair. I just wonder why they've gone for a cell shade and not just like a fold-out, complete canopy that runs the length of the building or the width of the building.
They're more prone to wind damage, aren't they, Councillor Dudgate? Whereas a sail can be left up and it can be tilted. So
I see. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the term cell shade, so
all right. Now
I do apologise.
No, it's fine. They're actually quite a useful thing to have, and you can erect them and bring them down very quickly. Councillor Ralph and Councillor Smith.
No, I mean, just to add to Councillor Dudgate's point, I think as a solution for their problem, it's actually a very light touch thing. You know, they have a few connection points to something, the building or the ground, and they're easily put up and taken down compared to other solutions. So,
Councillor Smith, thank you. Councillor Ralph and Dudgate.
I was just going to ask: is it implied that they're fully retractable? It's not a permanent fixture because it says in the diagram there's a post, a new post.
That's why you were turning your head.
Yeah, my diagram's on its side. But if I imagine by the name that there's they can be retracted. Either way, it sounds cool to me. But I'm just curious to know if that's what is implied.
Yeah, we could test that question. My understanding of sails is they can be, the pole is to tie it to the building. You tie it to the building, let's say tie. I don't know how they're fixing it. And the pole, it goes at an angle, so it ties to the pole. So you just literally let it down like a sail when you go sailing. It can go up, it can go down. So you can choose to remove it in minutes once you've got the right fittings to do so. So I think we've had some really interesting questions because it is a term that not everyone is perhaps used to, although you do see them in schools, particularly I've seen them in Australia, to be fair, covered areas. What I'm also interested in is, obviously this is our building as a council. What I'd like to understand, is there anything we need to do around insurance purposes to protect the building if it's being fixed to the building? Or just acknowledging with the insurers that if we agree this, that there is a sale going up and its structure?
I can tell them that. I mean, the person that's doing the installation, the person from Kelcombe Park Kitchen, is a builder anyway, so I'm confident that they would know what they were doing. Any small damage that might be caused probably wouldn't be enough to be covered by our excess anyway, so I'm sure it would be completely fine.
Okay, so are there any other questions or comments? No? So Locum Clark, how would you like us to proceed? Would you now like us to vote if we're for and against, having got a proposer and a seconder?
Oh, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay, so can I have a proposer, please, for this item? Councillor Power, and a seconder, is that you, Councillor Smith? And those for supporting Kelcombe Park Kitchen to install sail shades to provide shelter to the outside seating area. So for, I have Councillor Fagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas. So may I ask Locum Clerk how that will proceed? Will you make them aware in writing?
Yeah, I'll send them an email.
Okay,
Going to admit Councillor Greening now.
okay, so it's 1934, Councillor Greening as arriving in the meeting. We'll just wait for Councillor Greening to have audio. Hello. Excellent. Councillor Greening now has audio at 1934. So if that matter is now closed, and we now move on to 6E, to consider approving the March 2021 newsletter. So councillors, you would have received a newsletter. This discussion is about approving the newsletter that was written for March, but also discuss regular newsletters of the good work that's going on with the town council and other projects in the town linked to the town council that we can promote and share that excitement around, for example, the Repair Cafe or other initiatives in the town that are moving forward, like the market we could link it to. There are a raft of different initiatives the town council is supporting, and we could do statements on that, but also news stories related to what the council is doing in that month around maybe engagement events or meetings or other such engagement items, including the young people engagement piece that will be starting just after we come out of lockdown in June. So that's the premise of it. So firstly, I have the newsletter that is attached tonight. Can you say to me if you have any comments or questions in relation to this newsletter? And then we'll move on to a broader conversation about making this a regular item for council. So comments in relation to March 2021 newsletter? No comments? Okay, that's great. So Locum Clerk, do we vote these independently or do I do it as a whole? And we discussed now a regular newsletter with comments from councillors on what's going on in the town.
Yeah. You should vote on this particular March newsletter and then discuss future newsletters afterwards.
Okay, thank you for that. So in terms of the newsletter for March, do I have a proposer in support of the newsletter? Councillor Ralph, a seconder, Councillor Smith, and those for the newsletter. So those supporting its publication is Councillor Greening, Tagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Tudgate and Shelbourne-Barrow. Thank you. Did you manage to record that, Locum Clerk? Okay, thank you. Yes. So the next part of that conversation is related to a regular newsletter where I would very much like councillors to have a voice in that newsletter and to put items in they think is important to share with residents and businesses. How do councillors feel about a monthly newsletter? Comment, questions? It's not going to have your picture in it unless you desperately want it to. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Councillor Tudgate.
I think monthly is too regular. I would like to see, certainly in the first instance, perhaps a quarterly newsletter. I think you might struggle with a monthly one. There's a lot of work to go into it. It's got to be typed up, produced, and all the rest of it. You've got to find articles to go in there. So I would suggest initially that we try a quarterly newsletter, would be my view.
Okay, other comments from council, please? Councillor Smith.
I agree. I think it's great to try to produce something like this. We always should have been doing this, and I think you did a good job before with the message from the mayor. I think we should be doing something in that spirit anyway. While I think a monthly thing would be great, and of course the more regular the better. I think Ray is right. At least at this point, it's not really justified. I think it's a quarterly seems more reasonable.
Other comments, Councillor Rao.
We maybe make quarterly the minimum. because what I'm thinking is when we have news that's time imminent, we may want to release a letter that month. And I'm thinking there'll be, you know, lots of good news in the next few months to put in a news, hopefully.
Thank you, Councillor Ralph. Any other comments from councillors? Okay, so what I'm hearing is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that council would like to propose a minimum of quarterly with the opportunity for that newsletter to come out more frequently. So, for example, bi-monthly or monthly, dependent on what the news is. So from council, and that might be anything from appointments to engagement events to, I don't know, coming out of lockdown and what we're going to get up to in the town around. I mean, wouldn't that be a great thing to start talking about? So a minimum of quarterly, and then in terms of leading that development of the newsletter, would council be open to councillors taking a lead once a quarter as a minimum, or more frequently, and leading the development of a one-page newsletter? Would you find that? I'm getting lots of nods, which is useful, but on any other forum, it's not seen. So, so what I'm hearing is there's councillors, there's appetite for holding the reins on it and developing a newsletter in that quarter if you're the nominated person. Councillor Tudgay, do you wish to speak? Because I thought you were going to. No. Okay, fair enough. So the proposal is we will have as a minimum a quarterly newsletter with the opportunity for councillors to take the lead in developing a one-page, not arduous, minimum of one-page newsletter about what's going on in the town, which we could then develop into other opportunities linked with our project and development coordinator who's doing comms out as well. So it might be that some of this could sit with her to move forward more frequently, but it's a minimum a quarter, and then it could come back to council to review before being shared. Is that what we're saying? So thank you, Councillor Vagg. Can I have a proposer for a minimum of once a quarter, working with our project and development coordinator to develop a one-page minimum newsletter? I have a proposer, which is Councillor Vagg, a seconder, which is Councillor Smith. And can I have those who are for, please? For a newsletter. So I have Councillor Greening, Vagg, Power, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Thomas, Tudgay and Shelbourne-Barrows. So a full set of councillors tonight. So thank you for that. And the newsletter will be published through our website and through our Facebook page, and put in our notice board at the front of our office, and any other place it would be helpful to distribute or share that information at this time, as we're still in a version of lockdown. Moving on to 7 and planning. We consider the following planning applications as recommended by the Planning Committee on the 8th of March 2021. So I'm going to invite on this occasion the temporary chair, Councillor Tudgay, if that's okay with you, Councillor Thomas.
Absolutely, yeah.
To talk through this particular element on the paper. So Councillor Tudgay.
Thank you, Chair. We had 3 items. The first one was the White Horse, the application for 5 dwellings, 5 dwelling houses to the rear car park, along with the ancillaries, the bin stores, etc. The committee raised concerns about the lack of safety from the volume of traffic in and out of the narrow entrance next to the White Horse and onto the High Street. The committee also raised concerns about the loss of privacy for the adjacent homes from the overlooking of the proposed dwellings. And it was resolved that we recommend that this application be refused.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to take one item at a time, or do you want me to go through the lot?
Locum Clerk, how would you like this to proceed?
Well, the planning committee has made a recommendation to you,
Frozen.
so you're being asked whether you agree with that recommendation. So there's that to start with. So if you do, then all well and good, and we move on. But if you don't, you'll have to think of a different recommendation that you want to make to the district council.
Okay. Councillor Tuggy, are you still with us?
Yes, because it's over 3, it has to go to full council. So it is the full council's decision. We only have delegated powers of up to 3, I believe I'm correct in saying.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Thomas, have you frozen?
I've lost video. Everyone's frozen, but can you still hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Councillor Thomas.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You can. Great. Sorry, you're all frozen, but I'll continue. I wasn't there, unfortunately. I couldn't be chair for that meeting, but it was rejected because of 2 things. One of them being that overlooking other properties and imposing on their privacy. I wasn't aware that was actually a planning consideration. And also the amount of traffic going in and out of any proposed car parks outside of the development. If it's going to be a car park instead of houses, then surely there'll be a greater frequency of cars going in and out. So I don't really understand, to be honest, I don't really understand those 2 reasons for objecting to it. Can you hear me now?
Who's asking, can you hear me? Is that
Hello?
you, Councillor Thomas?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Sorry. Sorry, you froze again.
Did you? Everyone's frozen again. This is perfect timing.
We appear to be fine. Can you hear us, Councillor Thomas? Oh, he's
Oh, I'm
moving. Councillor on the move.
Chair, maybe we should let Councillor Thomas turn his video off for a bit. That
I
might
was just,
be the audio.
when he comes back, we'll offer that as an option. Thank you for that, Councillor Ralph.
He's giving us a house tour now, isn't he?
Well, maybe. So, Councillor Gay, with those 2 points that Councillor Thomas has raised, that he doesn't believe one of those to be a planning, an issue that we can raise with planning around being overlooked. And Locum Clark, yes, Locum Clark.
But overlooking is a planning consideration. Right to review is not, but overlooking is.
Sorry, I'm back now. Sorry.
Excellent.
Sorry about that.
That's
I don't know what you heard and what you didn't hear. So
Okay, so we heard you raise 2 issues and you asked for clarity on whether they were
Yeah.
issues that we could raise under planning, and the Locum Clark's just confirmed that, sorry, Locum Clark, could you repeat?
Overlooking is a valid planning reason for recommending refusal. The right to review is not, but overlooking is. So yeah.
and the traffic issue, because if it's not going to be developed into houses with their own car parking spaces, I would imagine it's going to end up being a car park. And if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot of traffic going in and out, much more than if it was a development.
So I have Councillor Smith and Councillor Tudgay.
I think that's an interesting point, which I hadn't considered before. But I think the thing that I did consider when I turned up to the planning meeting was that, to my knowledge, we as a council have yet to develop a coherent perspective on this whole property.
I agree.
We don't actually, if we think about it right now or whenever, I don't think we right now have any idea how we would prefer this place to be
No.
developed.
No,
I think it's interesting. I hadn't considered the fact that it might be better as dwellings than anything else by that metric.
Yeah, and also, as far as I understand, highways have found that there to be no potential issue with it, given that there used to be a car park and has always been a car park there. And traffic has been going in and out of it since it was a functioning pub stroke nightclub. I mean, and also I think the bigger issue is that it doesn't seem to be, I think it's very important, and I remember talking to Pam Williams about this, it's very important that the front main building and the development of the rear are considered almost as one, in case we end up with a development of the rear and the front is left. Because there's money at the back, there's money in developing those houses. There's potentially not a lot of money and an enormous money pit in the front of the development. That would be my concern, that we end up with development at the back and then an empty shell at the front for many years.
I think something else that I said at the meeting was that we might be dependent on the rear being developed in order to subsidise the development of the front.
Precisely.
Even if it's the same developer.
I mean, that's what I think. I think, personally speaking, I think it's unrealistic to expect it to remain a car park myself. But that's just my own view.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Thomas and Smith. Councillor Tudgay, I'm just about to cough again, so could you just lead this conversation piece for a moment?
I was just going to remind Council that we've already given permission for development of the main building. We've previously approved 14 dwellings in the front building. I think it's a great shame personally that the developers do not come and speak to us, because we'd previously approved a few years ago 3 single-story dwellings on the car park, and I feel sure that had this developer come back with something along similar lines, then there might have been a different outcome. And I certainly wouldn't disagree with anything that's been said tonight. We certainly need that property redeveloped. It needs to be sorted out in some shape or form or other. But we do have to respect the views of the neighbouring people who don't wish to be overlooked.
So can I ask then, what information, what comments were laid onto or inserted onto the planning website from members of the public? Councillor Tudgay.
At the point we discussed this matter, I believe there were 3 comments from memory, and they were all about being overlooked.
Okay, thank you. Nothing about access to and from?
Not from memory, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Vagg.
I didn't think that we had approved 14 flats in the building. That seems excessive. You've got 14, you've got 19 residences with up to 2 cars each, potentially. It's kind of crazy. But even if highways don't seem to think it's a problem, I think it is. If they're not going to do anything else, then we need to have those magnifying mirrors on the walls of the building opposite to allow clear egress from that alley, because it's just dangerous.
Okay. So where we're at is the issue of being overlooked is a reportable problem or comment from council informed by residents in the town. The access issue, I'm not sure, we can raise a comment around it, but it would be down to highways to decide whether it was supported around if this got through to the end and was approved. So I'm not sure how we could make a recommendation that we're concerned about access, but I'm not aware we can do anything else at this time. Locum Clark, is there any further comments we can make other than the ones I've just summarised from the conversation we've just had?
Well, I just for the record, it's important that we make it clear that the town council doesn't approve planning applications. You make comments, you make recommendations to the district council, and it's the district council that makes those decisions.
Yes.
You are within your rights to say whatever you think about this planning application. You'd be well advised to stick to planning matters, as Councillor Thomas referred to earlier. On the 11th of January planning meeting, I'm just checking what you said about the 14. You said that you were generally in favour of plans to bring the White Horse back into use and recommended approval of the application with a caveat that the ground floor frontage should remain in commercial use and not be converted to residential. and also that the car parks at the rear of the building should not be developed and should remain available for car parking. That being the case, I think you might want to think about how you're going to comment on this one, which is a proposal to develop the car park and not leave it all available for car parking.
So, thank you for that summary, Locum Clark. So, Councillor Tudgay, can you reiterate what the recommendation was from the Planning Committee on A, please?
We recommend it, full council recommend refusal on the grounds of overlooking and the traffic in and out of the site.
Are there any other comments council wishes to make in relation to this? Because that broadly is the summary of everything we've discussed and related to our previous conversation. Concerns around access, even though we take the point which was made by Councillor Thomas that this was a previously working pub that did have car park at the back and was access to and from the car park, and that short narrow alley road, I suppose you'd call it. So are we going to go with the proposal, the recommendation that Councillor Tudgay has brought from the Planning Committee tonight? Do I have a proposer that supports that, or do we wish to make another recommendation, another proposal? Okay, Councillor Tudgay, are you speaking or are you proposing?
I'm going to propose that we recommend refusal, Chair.
Do I have a seconder, please, for that proposal? Councillor Power, and those for supporting the proposal to refuse? I have Councillor Greening, Bagg, Power, Waters, Smith, Tudgay and Shelbourne Barrow. Those against, please? I have no one against, and those abstaining, please. I have 2 abstentions, which is Councillor Thomas and Councillor Ralph. Thank you for that, Council. Locum Clark.
Councillors Ralph and Thomas, do you want me to record your abstentions in the minutes?
Yes, please.
Yes, please, Locum.
Try and go back to my.
Oh, you've now frozen again, Councillor Thomas. So B, Councillor Tudgay, please.
The second one was land adjoining Verrington Hospital, Dancing Lane, Wincanton. It was reserved matters, referenced the 39 dwellings, which is in fact has been reduced to 35 dwellings, and it was resolved that it was recommended that council have no comment to pass on the reserved matters application.
Councillor Ralph and then Locum Clark.
The clerk's going to ask the same thing as me.
Yeah, the 2 applications that we've got on here are the full application and the listed building consent application for the same thing. We're not going through all the planning applications from the planning committee meeting. It was just that one where there was a recommendation. Okay,
so the fact that A and B are on here, it's just to note that those 2 are linked, and it's the 5 dwellings. Both of them are. Oh, it's a repeat, is it?
It's the same. Yeah. The
oh, the previous and the full. I apologise. Yeah, sorry. Apologies. Councillor Tudgay.
Apologies from me too. I was reading the planning minutes and not the full agenda for tonight. Thank you, Clark.
That's all right. I was a bit confused then.
Thank you. So we're moving now. We're closing planning, unless anyone else has any comments, and we're moving to finance. So 8, finance. There are a number of actions sat within this. We're starting with A, to consider renewing the Town Council's insurance policy with Zurich Municipal at the cost of £630.19. This is in relation to our vehicle, our van, that the council own. It's for clarity purposes. Are there any questions in relation to this particular item? Oh dear. Yes, Councillor Tudgay.
Have any other quotes been obtained, Chair?
No, I mean, I wasn't aware that it was due for renewal at this stage. So if I have been, I could have got some more quotes, but I have not done that.
What sort of time scale are we in before the renewal is due?
I will tell you. Hang on a minute. Renewal date is the 4th of April.
Hmm.
2
This
weeks.
is yeah, but it's above the if it's above 500, isn't that the amount that can be signed off by the locum clerk? So it needs to come back to council. So we'd
Yeah, I mean, you know, possibly one might be able to get quotes that were less than 500, but I don't know the answer to that. And I think it's probably at this stage more important to make sure the van is insured and to make a note for this time next year, or, you know, a month in advance of this time next year to get some other quotes.
yes. How does council feel about that? Are there any questions, Councillor Vag?
Honestly, I know it's 2 weeks, and I know it'd be before the next council meeting, but perhaps we should just check very quickly a couple of places and see if anybody is saying much less, to see if, you know, to see if Zurich are grossly overcharging us, and if necessary we could call another meeting to deal with it if it was way out. But I think it is just to reassure us that they're in the ballpark.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Ralph?
Assuming this is a policy that covers all members of staff that are relevant that drive this van, is that correct?
Yes.
I mean, in my experience, it sounds broadly in line with what that would cost. So I mean, not that in different circumstances, if there was more time, then obviously I think we should have more quotes. But if it involves convening more meetings and things like that, and a lot of extra work, we may need to be pragmatic.
Thank you, Councillor Ralph. Any other comments from council? So with that in mind, the point made in relation to additional quotes before coming to council, that would have been our preferred option, but at this time, and due to the time frames that the policy needs to be enacted by, we are tonight, from what I'm hearing, considering proposing and supporting this quote that we have this year, but actually looking in advance, maybe at month 10 for other options next year. So what would that be? Just after Christmas in February or earlier, on other options for insuring our works van or works lorry or flatbed or whatever we call it. I'm not really sure. Is that what we're saying? Is there a proposer for this, please? To continue with this insurance quote, Councillor Ralph, and a seconder, please. Councillor Greening, and a vote for. If you're for supporting the proposal for insurance with Muric Zero for £630 and 19 pence for our works van, for is Councillor Power, Thomas, Greening, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Tudgay and Shelbourne Barrow, and against or abstain. Are you against, Councillor Vag? Yes. Councillor Vag is against. Thank you. And we need to remember that just after Christmas, we need to look for a different, more insurance, do a compare website review. 8B, consider renewing the fire alarm, intruder alarm and emergency lighting maintenance contract for the Sharp Centre at a cost of £490. Questions from council, please. Any questions, comments? Councillor Thomas.
I assume this is just an annual cost that we've been paying all this time. Is this just
Yes, that's right.
I mean, it's an obligation, really, isn't it?
Yes. Well, the contract has obviously been with this particular provider for some time, and we're just renewing it where there's continuity at this time. So £490 is the cost. Councillor Thomas, you are occasionally, I think you've frozen again. Yes. I'm too late to say you may wish to turn your camera off, I'm afraid. So when Councillor Thomas comes back, I will ask that he considers that. So, Councillor Vagg, do you wish to pose a question?
Just a query as to how much it's gone up, if at all. What did we pay last year?
1 moment, please.
A very similar amount last year. Yeah, there's not much of a change. I can look it up for you if you want to wait for me to do that.
Yes. Councillor Thomas is still frozen. Oh, it's coming back. Hello.
Hello.
So we're still discussing the renewing of the fire alarm for the Sharp Centre, David Sharp Centre, and Locum Clark is looking at the cost we paid last year to understand how much it has gone up in request by Councillor Vagg.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments while the Locum Clark is looking for our payment for last year? No. Thank you.
I just have to connect to the computer in the office. Doesn't seem to want to work. This won't happen in the future because the Scribe accounting package is all in the cloud, so I could just look at it online straight away.
Okay. It might be useful for us to note when in a moment for both A and B or any similar actions or comments that come to council that we ask for the previous year's cost, if there's one available, if it's one like, for example, tonight, which is renewing a particular contract for the year, or if there, for example, with the van, that we have more than one quote, or understand if there's an increase from previous year. I feel we put you in a very difficult position, Locum Clark, for looking for that.
Yeah, it's just taking a little while to connect to the computer in the office, but I think I'm nearly there now.
Thank you.
Okay. Last year it was £485.99, and this year it's 490. So it's gone up by about £5, £4.
Okay, thank you for that. So any other further questions? If not, I would like a proposer. Councillor Tudgate is proposing. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Smith. And can I have those who are for continuing with the David Sharp Centre at £490 fire alarm and system review? I have Councillor Tudgate, Councillor Smith. Oh, sorry, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm coughing and my eyes keep shutting, which is not helpful. So, Councillor Tudgate is for. Councillor Thomas, Councillor Pagg, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Waters, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, Councillor Shelbourne Barry is for. And against or abstaining? Councillor Greening, are you voting in any of the above?
Yeah, no, sorry, I meant to to put my hand up in the first round. So yes, I'm voting for.
4. So that would be, I believe, unanimous. Do you wish Councillor Tudgate to raise his, Councillor Greening to raise his hand?
We've got that now, thank you.
Thank you. I apologise for coughing. It's actually distracting me that I keep wanting to cough all the time, and I apologise for that. So I will try and get my act together and stop myself from coughing, and thereby I can concentrate. Right, thank you for that. Moving on to 8C is to consider subscribing to the Royal Market Town Group at an annual charge of £130. Now, you've been shared a sort of a newsletter. I believe Council's been shared a newsletter which you would have, I'm sure, reviewed. I'm aware that this particular charge is open for 6 months, or till September, sorry, free. And then for Council, if they feel they've had value from that in terms of emails and information, then consider at that point whether they wish to pay the outstanding amount for the year, which will be half of the year, around 50. I wrote it down and I've still forgotten it. The rest of the fee, so that we could then complete the year and then consider as part of our normal budgeting, including it in the year 23-24. So Council, are there any comments or questions in relation to this item in terms of supporting it or not? No? Councillor Ralph.
I was going to propose exactly that, Chair, that we wait till September, see, judge what value we've had from our membership and then decide whether to commit or not.
Thank you. Councillor, and a seconder. If you're proposing, Councillor Ralph, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Power. And those 4, so supporting 4. Councillor Power, Tudgate, Thomas, Greening, Fagg, Waters, Ralph, Smith and Shelbourne Paris. So that's unanimous. And we will review it in September to then consider if we complete the final part of the year and then review it for the new financial year subsequently. Thank you for that. Is there anything further you would like to have at this point, Locum Clerk, in relation to this item? Thank you. Moving on now to 8B, to consider quotes for the internal audit work for 2021 financial year. So you've received the quotes. I'm going to ask that the Locum Clerk speaks to this item, and then we can discuss any questions you have following that. So Locum Clerk.
Well, what can I say? You've seen the quotes. Obviously, the lowest one at the top, the highest one in the middle there, although that person has offered a 3-year contract, although it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. And then the sort of the middle cost one at the bottom. I've worked with Rosie Darkin Miller. She was the internal auditor at Castle Carey. I've worked with Tim Light at various different councils, and Tim, in fact, was the internal auditor that fixed the AGAR for us, the 1920 AGAR, which was extremely helpful. I've worked a little bit with Emma Miller. She's obviously the cheapest, but I've only worked with her briefly here at Wincanton, so I don't really have much experience of her. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if anyone has any.
I'm interested in the fact that one of the candidates has actually offered a 3-year contract, because there is something about, firstly, we'd like to consider as a council moving to quarterly AGAR, the AGAR process, reviewing quarterly, so when we get to year end, majority of the work has been completed, which will actually save time and be, ensure that we deal with things in year if there's anything to deal with. But the other element to staying with someone more than a year is that there is continuity where, in terms of getting to know our council, getting to know our processes. And I think there's some benefit in doing that, but I'm just intrigued by that as a concept as much as anything, than renewing on an annual basis. Is there any reason why we can't do a 3-year agreement, or does it have to be an annual?
No, it doesn't have to be annual. You can go into a 3-year agreement, and I agree that it's a good idea to have a bit of continuity with your internal auditor. Tim Light would certainly look to continue, and you could ask him in future. I didn't ask any of them to give a 3-year deal, but Rosie Darkin-Miller chose to do that anyway. That's really just the way she operates. Emma Miller said she would the £400 she would cut it £100 per quarter, so she's obviously planning to do it quarterly. And I know that Rosie and Tim would do at least 3 visits per year at a council of the size of Wincanton, as you say, to make sure that as much work as possible is done through the year. Of course, that hasn't happened this year because we're nearly at the end of the financial year, so it would probably end up having to be one or two larger, I'm using the word visit, but of course under the current circumstances it would probably be remote. So yeah.
Okay, comments from council on annual, 3 yearly, or how do you feel about that? Because it's our personal choice in terms of, we've had I think Emma Miller supported us with, prior to Tim coming in, like do the forensic review. I believe she did that initial review for AGAR to identify that there were things that we needed to look further into. Yes, Councillor Ralph.
I mean, my personal view on length of time you engage someone is you only ever really engage in a longer contract if you have no choice. You always take the shortest option because very few people will then refuse your business if you want to continue it. So I'd be happy with committing to someone for 1 year. My other comment is I was fascinated at the spread of these costs. They were quite substantial difference from start to finish.
Any other comments? So each one in point then, going back to Emma Miller, I believe is the auditor that undertook our audit at the beginning of our audit for the previous year, and supported by Tim Light, who actually completed the task, and the other lady, Rosie Darkin-Miller, was one that we haven't met before, although obviously our locum clerk does know of all these candidates. So locum clerk, you wish to speak?
Sorry, there was just one other thing which I planned to say, which is that Rosie and Tim are both very experienced in the local government sector, whereas I don't know if the other lady is as such. Yes. She's a qualified accountant, to be sure, but I think having experience in the sector is important.
Yes. Okay. So with that in mind, this Councillor Tudgay, is that a raising of the hand? No.
Yes.
Oh,
sorry,
yes.
Chair. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I was going to. I totally agree with the comments made by Councillor Rolfe, and it really is. Well, it's almost double one price from the other. So I'm going to propose that we engage Tim Light for the sum of £695 per annum, and we do it on a yearly basis. And if he wishes to renew, then, and if he's done a good job, we can renew.
Excellent, thank you. So the proposal is Tim Light. Do I have a seconder? Is that you, Councillor Ralph? Thank you. And those four, please. Those four, Tim Light for 2021, and that we'll review annually. So 4 is Councillor Thomas, Councillor Power, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Greening, Councillor Bagg, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Shelbourne Barrett, and Councillor Waters, if I didn't say that. I'm not sure I did. Thank you. That's unanimous, as I believe it. So, locum clerk, will you be agreeing with Mr. Light when he could come in and do his first review?
Yeah, definitely. I'll get right on it on Wednesday.
Lovely, thank you for that. Right, I'm now closing that particular item. Next item on the agenda is 8E, and that is to review the financial risk assessment and management document. So this is a key document for us as council to review. We will be looking to review this and develop it further when in a future date, but currently we have an updated version available to council. So in terms of this item, are there any questions or comments? No? Okay. In terms of my only comment is any risk assessment I would envisage should have a matrix which is numbered, or you're given some weighting to the risk rather than just high. For example, you might have 16, which when you add up all the elements of the risk, it makes it a high risk. And then you should have very clear actions that put it in that place, what put it in there, the context. And then you should have what the mitigating actions are and any comments going alongside it. So moving forward, I'd like to review this, but in the standard format that it's in now, it meets the requirements for us to, as council, review and vote upon whether we support it or not. I'm not seeing from council any comment or questions. So with that in mind, can I ask for a proposer, please? Councillor Ralph, and a seconder, please. Councillor Power, and a vote for, if you're for supporting the document. So I have 4. It's Councillor Power, Tudgay, Thomas, Greening, Fagg, Waters, Ralph, Smith, and Shelbourne Barrows. So I believe that to be unanimous. Are you happy with that, Locum Clerk?
Yes, thank you.
And how will we move this forward? What's the next step, if you could confirm, please?
Well, I'll just tidy up the documents because obviously it's got red text on it at the moment for the things to highlight what has changed or been added. So I'll tidy that up and get it put onto the website, because you need to approve that document and have it on the website, because that's something that the internal auditor has to look at and be able to sign off for you.
Thank you for that. And now we're closing that item and moving on to sorry, I thought I heard someone speak. 8F, which is to hear an update on the switch to our new bank, the Trust Bank. So can I ask that Locum Clerk provides us with an exciting update?
Yes, well, all the paperwork has been completed, and I've printed it all out today. I have to send the standing orders, the financial regulations, months worth of bank statements, and various other bits and bobs. So all that remains is I need to have a cheque for £500 made out from your current account to yourselves. So the cheque would be made out to Wincanton Town Council, and that's what you need in order to start the account, sort of an initial deposit, if you like. So if I could ask you to agree to that, that would be really helpful. And when we get to the part about the other cheques to be signed, when somebody or 2 of you come in to sign those cheques, I'll make sure that this £500 cheque is also prepared and signed. So the money's not going anywhere. It's basically like a bank transfer, but from your current account into this new one.
So we can open the new account. It's anyone who knows about starting an account, you need to put money in to activate it. It's a process. The money still stays with us. It's not going anywhere. It's just activating our account. So comments or questions? I would just like to say thank you to Councillor Tudgay.
So what time frame then should we anticipate the new account being operational?
Well, I don't really know the answer to that, I'm afraid, Councillor Tudgay, but I'd have to send all the stuff in by post. So if I get the cheque on Wednesday, say, and put it all in the post first class the same day, they should get it on Thursday, and maybe we'll have an account by the end of the month.
Thank you. Any other
questions
or comment from council? No, I just would like to thank our Locum Clerk for actually moving this forward for us, because this is going to make a huge seismic shift in how we operate as a council, because we will be able to move to online banking, and the authorization will be done with the individuals who are nominated authorizers of cheques. and therefore it would speed up, but also move forward, modernise our approach to banking. And when you look at one of the further items on the agenda, which is Scribe and our step back, our payments for this month, you'll see some of that change starting to come through in the documentation. So I'd like to, as I said, thank the local clerk, and hopefully at the end of the month we can have an update or an update on potential start date, which the bank should be able to give you in the broadest sense. Thank you for that.
I'll let you know.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is
Sorry, could you just
vote.
agree for the
Vote.
check, please?
Yeah. So can I have a proposer for the £500 move from our bank account to the new bank account? I have Councillor Tudgay and Councillor Ragg is the seconder. Thank you. And those four supporting the movement of the £500 from one account to the other to activate it. I have Councillor Power, Tudgay, Thomas, Greening, Ragg, Waters, Ralph, Smith and Shelbourne Barry. Unanimous. Thank you. Apologies that I didn't do that.
Thanks.
Moving on to 8G, which is to hear an update on the stakeholder group projects funded in 2021. Tonight we will be, I'd be asking to move that forward to the next meeting, where it would sit better with the end of year accounts, so we can provide an update on all the projects and an update on the spend against our preset amount allocated to the Good Stuff Fund, and we will be able to report an end of year account associated with that as well. So is everyone happy to defer? And can I have a proposer, please, to do that, and a seconder? A proposer is Councillor Vagg, a seconder to move it to the next meeting, please. Councillor Waters, and those four, please. Councillor Power, Tudgay, Thomas, Greening, Vagg, Waters, Ralph, Smith and Shelbourne Barry. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is 8H, to hear update on our possible Section 106 contributions due to the Town Council. I'm going to ask the local clerk to provide an update on this.
Well, I'd like to be able to, but we haven't heard anything back. We both, the chair and myself, we've both been in contact with the district council. Well, we did at least have an acknowledgement this time of our emails, didn't we? But we haven't actually had any information back. So I guess that's going to need also to follow on to the next meeting.
Yes, thank you. I think if we keep it, my view is, and I don't know about council, but we keep it on the agenda until we are actually in a position to review it in its entirety, because it's a key aspect of supporting our actions for next year and following years. Councillor Ralph.
Yeah, I'd just like to add weight to that, Chair, because this is something we've been asking for a long time now. And I know that they've said, I know this is a difficult time and they're struggling with, personnel at SSDC, but I think it's important that we note that we have been asking for a while and we're still waiting.
Thank you. And I think we should note that, yes, Councillor Vagg.
I think that some of these potential amounts are probably so old that we might be in danger of losing them. And I wonder if SSDC won't tell us how much it is and we do lose them, are they going to be responsible?
That's a good point made there, Councillor Vagg. I think what we do know is we have evidence of requesting this information from Q3 last year, I believe, if not before, slightly before. So we have a record of that. If in the event when we do secure this update, we will ask the pertinent questions as required. Okay, thank you for that, Locum Clerk and Council. The next item on the agenda is to consider a recommendation from Open Spaces Committee that a phased repair to the damaged tarmac in the Mugger is undertaken at a cost of £660. I would like to invite Councillor Tudgay as the Chair of Open Spaces to speak to this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. At the Open Spaces meeting, we discussed various quotes that we'd had that had been obtained via the works supervisor. Because of the length of time that had lapsed from the original quote, he'd gone back and re-quoted. And one of the people who came to look at the thing suggested that we do this phased repair to see what happens, rather than do the whole thing and then it collapses again. So the Open Spaces Committee is recommending that we go with the phased repair for a cost of £660, as opposed to the full repair, which from memory was £4,000, I think.
Yes.
I
thank
can't
you.
remember the original figure now off the top of my head. So that's what Open Spaces is recommending that council do.
Thank you. Comments or questions from council, please? Councillor Ralph.
I'd just like to commend everyone involved in this, because when I first heard about this, I'm not on Open Spaces. It was looking like one of the first solutions was going to be a lot more costly. So if we've managed to find another way through for now, that is excellent news.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? No? I would also like to reiterate that I think a phased approach is the right way forward, because actually you don't always know what you're going to find until you actually start to explore it, and also to work out whether that repair or that type of repair is the right one for our particular area in the Mugger, in our town, you know, where it's situated and so forth. So I think from my perspective, I would see that as a reasonable and affordable way forward to us, for us to decide how we then look at securing additional monies to support this. Can I just ask Locum Clark, is that money, the 660, that's already within our budget?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So with that in mind, phase repair for the cost of 660 that's already within our budget, allocated for this financial year. Can I ask for a proposer, please? Councillor Smith, and a seconder, Councillor Ralph, and those four supporting the repair, the phase repair. So I have Councillor Power, Tudgay, Thomas, Greening, Fagg, Waters, Ralph, Smith, and Shelbourne Barry. So unanimous. Thank you for that. It will be helpful for us to make residents aware of when that work will be carried out and how long the Mugger may well actually not be available for use, so we can put the right signage up, but also protect people if by making sure they're aware there are risks to going in an area if they find their way into the Mugger over the fence or something like that. So
while the work is taking place, the whole area will be fenced off by the contractor, but we can certainly do signage as well to warn people in advance.
Thank you. It would be helpful also to make sure that it's on our council website and on the notice board, and potentially put out through the schools so they're aware of it as well, to make children and families aware. So 8J, moving on in the items, to consider a recommendation for Open Spaces Committee to purchase various pieces of machinery needed by the works team from Hunt Forest at a total cost of £1,225.33. Councillor Tudgay, would you like as chair to comment or?
Yes, Chair. Again, the work supervisor obtained 3 quotes of all 3 were within £5 or £6 of each other. We currently have an account and deal with the the Hunt Forest group, so it was decided that that would be the best way to go. And again, the Open Spaces Committee recommends that we use Hunt Forest for these pieces of equipment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments to Councillor Tudgay or the Open Spaces Committee as a whole? No comments or questions. Thank you. So therefore, can I have a proposer for this this recommendation for Open Spaces, please? Proposer is Councillor Power. A seconder, please. Councillor Waters. And those 4 supporting the purchase of the equipment outlined in the documentation. I have Councillor Power, Tudgay, Greening, Vagg, Waters, Ralph, Smith, Shelbourne Barrett, and Thomas. I believe that to be unanimous. Thank you. We need to ensure that our insurers are aware of all the equipment, or is that covered under our insurance policy anyway?
The equipment will be added to the asset register, which will be shared with the insurer. So there may be some small change to your your assets figure on your AGAR for the coming year. So yeah, it will fall into the 2021 AGAR if we get the bill before the end of this financial year. If not, it will fall into next year's 21-22 AGAR.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming that. Moving on to 8K, which is to consider a recommendation from the Open Spaces Committee that 2 companies are nominated as preferred suppliers. So Councillor Tudgay, would you like to discuss this again?
Well, thank you, Chair, again. The work supervisor requested that we have some preferred suppliers to make his life easier, you know, such he doesn't have to keep coming back to the clerk or full council for permission to get repairs and things done. And again, the Open Spaces Committee supported him in this action. And we would recommend that for machinery repairs for costs up to £500 per item, we recommend TJ Young, who is one of our current suppliers and is in the town and has given us very good service. So we would recommend him for the machinery repairs, and likewise for the play equipment, Play UK, who we've used on numerous occasions in the past. We would like to use them for as a preferred supplier for costs up to £1,000.
Thank you. Any questions or comment from council?
Can I just add, Play UK, although it's a national sounding company, they are a local company based here in Somerset, so they are a local supplier.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I actually think as a council, this is a positive way forward to actually have preferred providers who we build relationships with around providing services for us, as long as on a regular basis, whatever that might look like, we can review those to ensure we're still getting value for money. So in this instance, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Tudgay.
That's a very good point, Chair. I think we ought to add to this that we review these annually, these suppliers. I don't think that would be a bad thing.
Thank you for that. Locum Clerk, if you noted that we will review annually. So any other questions from council? If not, I'm scanning the screen. If not, I'm looking for a proposer for both of those, if that's okay with the Locum Clerk, for both preferred providers, and which will be reviewed on an annual basis. So who's a proposer for that, please? Councillor Waters. A seconder, please. Councillor Tudgay. And those 4, the preferred providers mentioned 4. So I have Councillor Thomas, Councillor Power, Tudgay, Greening, Ag, Waters, Ralph, Smith and Shelbourne Barrow. Thank you. That's unanimous. And we revisit that in a year's time. 8L, sorry, to approve the March 2021 payment list and agree to councillors to sign cheques. Well, as colleagues will have seen, this is a very extensive list. And this item has been populated from Scribe, our new finance software. So this is the first product to come to council. This is quite exciting. I think it's quite exciting, which is this sad world I live in. So council, I recognise there's an awful lot of information there, but you would have had time to review it. Are there any questions or comments in relation to the documentation shared with you? Councillor Ralph.
If the chair will indulge me, I had a question for the Locum Clerk, which is, I know it's been a lot of work to get to this stage, but was creating the payment list easier now all that information exists?
Super easy. Yeah, it's really good. Before, the list of checks had to be, you had to look through Sage and then type the list into Excel and then make it into a PDF and then send it to everybody. Now you can just go into Scribe, select the payment numbers, the range of payment numbers that are supposed to be on your list, and then just save it as a PDF. It's about 5 clicks as opposed to very, very many keystrokes.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the detail within the Scribe report? No? Okay, so let's complete the first task, which is, may I have, if If there's no questions or comments, may I have a proposer for the payment list of the 22nd of March 2021, please? Councillor Ralph. A seconder, please. Councillor Vag. And those four supporting the payment list. Councillor Thomas. Power. Ludgate, Greening, Vag, Waters, Ralph, Smith and Shelbourne Barrow 4, and therefore it's unanimous. There are no one against. The second item for this element of the agenda is to agree to councillors to sign cheques while we are still not in our new format. So the two councillors, Councillor Vag, are you offering to sign? Thank you. And Councillor Waters is offering to sign. So we have two councillors. Yes, Councillor Locum Clark.
Would it be okay for you both to come in on Wednesday morning, please? Because Muriel's off tomorrow, so there won't be anybody in the office, but we'll both be there on Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So two councillors have nominated themselves to sign cheques on Wednesday. Thank you for that. And that would also include the £500 to start our new bank account, and we can move to online banking. Excellent. Exciting times. You see, it's exciting times. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to consider items for the next agenda. So we have a number that we've actually identified in the meeting that we're moving forward, or the next agenda at the end of April. Are there any other items anyone would like to propose at this stage? Councillor Thomas, you've frozen. Oh no, he's back. Any other items? If not, Councillor Ralph.
Just wanted to say quickly, thank you to the Locum Clark and the clerking team for preparing for this meeting, because it took long enough as a councillor to prepare for it. There was a lot of stuff this time, so
yeah, there is, yeah.
You even longer, and I know your time is limited, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for the agenda for next time? If not, we'll close that item on the agenda and move to point 10. Okay, point 10, exclusion of press and public. To consider exclusion of press and public for the remainder of the meeting under the Public Bodies Administrative to Meetings Act 1960, Section 1(2), on the grounds that the discussion of the following business is likely to disclose confidential information relating to contracts. So in that, are there any questions? If not, I'd like a proposer, please, to exclude press and public, and then a seconder, and then we will vote. So may I have a proposer, please, if no questions? Councillor Tudgay, are you proposing? Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Ralph, and those who support exclusion of press and public for the final part of the agenda. I have Councillor Thomas, Power, Tudgay, Greening, Vag, Waters, Ralph, Smith and Shelbourne Barrow. Thank you. So Locum Clark,